Hello and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, number 426, recorded live Wednesday, March 6th, 2019. I am the fabulous Shane Young, and you can tell, but since I'm doing the intro, that means we have no Todd. But I have great news. It's not just me. We also have a special guest. Who are you, special guest?
My name is Jon Levesque. I am a senior program manager on the Microsoft Flow team.
Very exciting. Yeah, and it's only appropriate, right? Because number 426, so John, we've been doing the web codes, what are the HTTP response codes? And by dumb luck, 426 is actually upgrade required. So the show required an upgrade, so Todd is gone, you're in, life is great. Now, it is a little awkward, though, because I'm used to being the good-looking one on the show, and I mean, you're a handsome devil, so I don't know how I feel about this. So we might have over-upgraded, I don't know.
You know what, Shane? Come on. Don't give me too much credit. You are a handsome fellow. We are suddenly now, with Todd gone, this has become the most handsome podcast.
Maybe we should rebrand. That's not a bad idea. So quick shout out to our friends at Syskit. They make great SharePoint reporting software. They make a bunch of other stuff as well. The only thing that they really do wrong is they've chosen Todd as their spokesperson. So maybe they need to understand 426 upgrade required and move along as well. I don't know. For production notes, Todd didn't give me any production notes, so we're just going to assume everything is out there. But it is a good reminder that, so next week, Todd and I will be in Seattle. So good chance that a lot's not going to get done next week. And there's just a bunch of shenanigans. So the shows might be coming out a little bit late. So just so everyone kind of knows that. And I think that is all I'm supposed to. And if you're wondering where Todd and Lori, they're already in Branson. I don't go to Branson until Friday, so I stayed for you guys. They left early, so they didn't have to see you guys.
Boo.
All right, well, let's just jump right in. So, John, what do you do? I mean, you said you're a flow guy, but I mean,
yeah.
What up?
So there's a lot of people on the team, and they are building the product, right? They're called feature PMs.
Okay.
And so they own certain areas of the product, and they build out that area of the product. And the way I like to put it is I own everything around the product. So all of the blogs and the learning and the community and the social media and the speaking and the videos and right, everything else. And so they're trying to make a great product. I'm trying to make that product known. And so I spend a lot of my time in the community. I spend a lot of my time traveling, especially, last year and this year have really become a lot of going to events and meeting with people in person and evangelizing Flow to the masses in person. And I have this goal this year that I'm trying to talk to 10,000 people in person.
And how are we going, right? I mean, we're almost a quarter of the way in.
Not good. I'm only at 1,000, just under 1,000 so far. So not on track to hit 10,000. I got to hit some big events. So I'm hoping my Ignite and Inspire. I'm hoping for some big crowds there to try and jump the numbers up a little bit.
Yeah, well, Inspire, if you can just hit that keynote, you can be like, hey, Satya, you got to move. I need to talk to these people. That'd get you in one fell swoop, right? So.
You're right. That would. I got to talk to Satya about it, man. I'm trying.
Very cool. So that's Inspire. And so you're going to do Ignite as well. So then maybe there's a chance there. You can pick up a room of 1,000 people there with a little bit of little elbow grease. So. Yeah,
last year, Kent and I, we did 1,000 people in our Ignite talk. So hoping to beat that this year.
Yeah, without Kent though, it might be
without Kent, which I don't know about that. Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, no technical mastery, just loud talking. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so what's driving so many people to these Flow sessions? I mean, what's this excitement all about? I know some of our audience is really all hog wild into Flow, and some of us are kind of like, Flow, what do you do? So
yeah,
why should I go to a Flow session? What do I care about Flow?
So okay, the beauty of Flow is really two parts, right? On the first side of things, there is what I can do for my personal productivity, right? So I am constantly automating myself out of a job. That's my goal. I just want to sit back one day and let all the flows run, and they'll pay me for a little while before they realize that's what's happening, before they move me on. But that's really what I'm trying to get to. So I have replaced business cards. Right now I use a Flow. And I have replaced nagging people through email with flows. I have replaced scheduling events and follow-ups with flows, right? So on my side of things, there's this personal productivity side of the product where you can build all sorts of cool stuff that makes me work less. Now, on the other side of things, on the second part, there is this enterprise level productivity, right? Where I can build workflow and process automation for my company, for my team, for my company, right? And so I think the reason you should come and check it out is oftentimes we do a lot of great use cases where we'll talk about this. We'll give you a bit of intro, here's what it does, and then a little bit of how, here's how it works. But then we often like to close up with some story time and be like, and here's how people are using it, which really brings it home. When you hear about some of the use cases and how this is being used, it really starts to do a little bit of show and tell. It kind of lets you recognize what's possible.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've tried to. So you articulate it better than I do. But when people are like, "Hey, I want to go and do Flow, right? What do I want to do?" I always be like, "Hey, I'm lazy, right? So I got started in Flow the same way as you, right? I was like, what can I do to make this guy do less work?"
Totally.
And that was how I worked it out. You know, the best Flow to this day that I've written, well, my customers wouldn't agree, but I think, is I wrote one. So every time that someone fills out the contact form at powerapps911.com, you know, I get an email, right? It's a crappy little system. All I do is get an email out of it. So I wrote a flow that sees that email hit my inbox. It extrapolates all the information with a bunch of text expressions.
Nice.
And then it sends them back an email with options that says, "Hey, you know, thanks for contacting us. Somebody will get back to you, blah, 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 blah. While you're reading all this, would you like to join our mailing list?" Press yes or no. And if they press yes, the flow picks that up. And then it goes and automatically adds them in the MailChimp. They don't have to do anything else, right? Just boom, pops it right through. And
awesome.
That has went from, you know, we had no one, like we had like 8 people on our mailing list. We have hundreds and hundreds of people on our mailing list now.
Nice.
And I do nothing. I just wrote a flow one day that, you know, chugs through these things. So personal productivity is a great example.
It's the beautiful thing about it, right? Is like that question is so hard for me too. What can I do with this thing? I'm like, man, what do you want to do with this thing?
Yeah.
Right. And that's hard for people to digest because then I think it really gets to this place of like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Right. And so then it comes down to those practical examples. And you've built some great flows. You've built some, I mean, way more apps for sure. But I've seen you build some really great flows too. And so but you understand it, right? When people come to you with that question, it's really kind of hard to break it down. And so I try and do it in that way, those 2 buckets. And that at least gives them at least a little bit of understanding of, okay, here's some of the ideas I can begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, sending those emails to your boss to tell them to go away, right? Those type of automated things. I don't know about, right? You turn me on to write my little flick button here. It's hard to see on the camera. But, you know, so this is a physical, like literally a physical button that I press that triggers flows for me. And so I just configured it yesterday. So if I press the button, it sends a text message through Twilio or whatever those people are.
Okay.
Just to prove that I could, right? So press the button, get a text message.
Totally.
That sounds dumb. Like, what's the point of that? But it gets me understanding the mechanics because now I have customers who are like, hey, I want to send text messages if in the safety app. So our safety power apps, if they mark this as severe, I want to send out text messages to the CEO and a bunch of important people.
Totally.
And so I just have send it over to Flow. Flow says, hey, I got this. It sends out text messages and we're off and running. So
totally. I actually have a really great example of that. You want me to share it with you real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I went and met this customer. They had never touched Power Apps and Flow. They agreed to come and let us come on site and watch them use it for the first time. So I'm walking through their warehouse as I'm entering the building, and I look over and I see a bunch of guys standing by this big bay door, right? Like they're waiting for a truck. Yeah. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? Like, oh, they're waiting for the delivery this morning. I'm like, then they're all just standing there? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, how long, what time is the truck supposed to come? He says 10:30. I check my watch. It's like 10:38. So suffice it to say, I'm going to skip a bunch of the story, but these guys stand around at the door every day waiting for this truck, wasting time.
Yeah.
I go through this whole study with them. I go back to the garage and I say, okay, guys, I'm going to save you a bunch of money. I took out one of those buttons and I had a flick hub that it connects to, so no one had to connect it to their phone. I set this up in their building and I put this button right next to the wall, right where the bay door is. Now, the first guy that sees the truck goes and hits the button, and everyone else gets a text. The truck is here. They went and they did research on how much money this was saving them, because before this, they never really thought it was a problem. Everyone just stood around every day. So they went and they did the research on how much it was costing to have everyone stand around every day. They saved like $55,000 a year in labor costs from that one $38 flow button and the $100 flick hub and my 4 minutes of flow making.
I mean, that's what this is all about, right? Let's be honest with everyone, right? You are not a technical man. Right?
I'm not. No, we can be very honest about that. I am not.
And here you went in, you said, look, I understand what the product can do. I understand the business rules of people standing around waiting on the truck is a bad idea. Yeah. And like you said, 4 minutes later, you had written a flow to do this. And I think that's really the big mind drop for a lot of people here. You've never written a line of code in your life. You're not an IT person. You are a good-looking spokesmodel who just saved the company $55,000 a year with 4 minutes of your time.
I need to quote that. You never wrote a line of code. You're just a handsome spokesmodel.
Good looking. Let's get it right.
Good looking spokesmodel. Yes, I like that. Thank you, Shane. Thank you.
But that's what I love about the Power Platform as a rule, right? Is it's not super nerds like me doing a lot of this stuff. It is people who said, wait a minute, from a business point of view, that's stupid. Let me press some buttons over here. Got it.
Totally.
So, well, very cool. So that's so speaking of you being a spokesmodel, though, I know you're an aspiring YouTuber. You want to be me when you grow up one day.
I do.
So
it's true.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about what you do kind of in YouTube? You got a podcast, kind of your own stuff out there?
Yeah. So the YouTube channel is the big thing right now. Started doing, it's kind of twofold. So want to be like Shane in one regard, where my technical or somewhat technical knowledge is shared from me. And so I do flow tutorials, right? And I do them from the perspective of let's have fun with it instead of let's really solve a business need. So a lot of the times, we're doing hot dog, not hot dog, or I'm out and about like trying to figure out how to have a bot do some work for me, or right, we're automating my email. There's a lot of things there that don't get super, super technical, but they're meant to really be show and tell, right? Just to get you thinking about what's possible. And the best part about that is I've heard a lot of great things, like the hot dog not hot dog video spawned a lot of real world use cases. Yeah. And so I do that. That's one half. The other half is I'm really trying to show myself, as the spokesperson. And so I do like adventure and travel videos as well. So whenever I'm out with the community, I usually make a video about hanging out with them. I've done a lot of skiing this winter, so there's a few videos about that. But I do a lot of crazy things like racing cars or driving boats and jumping off the stratosphere. And so the adventure videos, I try and keep fresh and fun and interesting. And then just recently started a podcast called JSYK, Just So You Know. And it's John and Kent, J and K, and everything in the middle is everything you should know. And so that's kind of the little tagline to it. And we just cover general technology and entrepreneurship. It was our way. We worked together, and he moved away to take a new job and be closer to family. And so it was our way of kind of keep on doing something together. So this is our outlet where we just go and talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, and we get a little bit wild, and we have a segment called the Complaint Department where we find like a company or corporation that's not acting proper, and we put them on blast. And that's pretty fun. That's always good to like get to have a segment where you purposely talk smack.
Very nice. Yeah. And let's be clear, in the get all riled up, right? You get all riled up. Kent is probably the smoothest, level guy ever. So you have these giant peaks on the meter, and Kent's just like, I got this.
Yes, cool. We are complete opposites in that regard, which is why it's so perfect. Perfect examples of left brain, right brain.
Or well, I don't know. I like to think of it as Kent has all the brain, but whatever.
Brains and mouth.
That might be a better way to explain it.
Yeah, yeah.
So very cool. Yeah, so I don't know. I think we kind of worked a little bit about the flow stuff, and you're pretty passionate about that. It's very clear.
Yes.
You know, and so as we kind of move on, what do you see flow, right? So for my friends who are already in the flow space, right? Let's take advantage of you being here. And where do you see flow going? What is flow's short-term future? What is flow 2 years from now type of thing?
Yeah, so I think a few things you're going to see. One, the system is going to continue to come together, the ecosystem, Power Apps, Flow, Dynamics, CDS, like all this stuff will continue to merge and create a more cohesive experience. And so you're kind of already seeing that now, like when you go to solutions, kind of everything is built into one place there. From solutions, I can kick off apps and flows and entities and dashboards and all that. The admin experience behind the scenes is really starting to come together. And so you're seeing it more and more in touch points. And so you're going to really start to see that ecosystem coalesce and come together a lot more clearly. Other than that, though, I think you're going to see Flow and Logic apps will begin to have their own identities more. The individual value of each will kind of begin to arise out now as we start messaging each more clearly. We're defining what is it that you do, what is it that we do, how do we talk to our customers and show them what is it that we each do and why they should use us when. Instead of just that default answer of like, oh yeah, you're a Azure person, use Logic apps, you're an Office person, use Flow, right? That doesn't quite fit. And so we've come back with a bit of a better idea around that. And so you'll start to see that messaging come out. Also, I'm pretty sure I can say this. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm going to say it anyways because I'm pretty sure we announced it. So RPA, robotic process automation, will be something that is coming to Flow. And we've made these announcements recently at some events, and people have been asking a lot about it. It's a very hot topic. And so I don't have much more to say about it. I'm not sure on any time frames, but it has been decided, and I think we are looking now to move more into that RPA space. Flow already does like some RPA-like types of activities, but I think for us to bring in, some of that like screen scraping and analog inputs is going to kind of take us to that next level in that arena.
Can you step back a step and just kind of define RPA?
Yeah.
What the heck is it, right? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what it is.
Okay, cool. So Flow is something that exists in a digital process automation, DPA.
Yep. Okay.
And so that's like where I take a process that contains digital information and then I build a workflow out of that, right? So I take an email, I grab information out of it, I move it into SharePoint, right? That's a digital process automated.
Got it.
A robotic process automation is where there may be some level of physical need, right? Where there has to be something pressed on a keyboard because the system is possibly too old to where we don't have anything that can program inside of it to create these actions. So you might have like a little robotic finger that is programmed to go and type in the word yes and then press enter at a certain interval, right? Or you might have a machine that sits over an old screen and then reads that screen and takes that information and translates it into digital text. It's a type of automation that works with physical things that aren't able to be programmed currently.
Gotcha. So, and I would like to point out that you did a good job of skipping over physical needs and not doing anything inappropriate with that. So kudos to you there. But so, like I talked to one customer, they're a manufacturer here in the U.S., and they do every product that they make, they test, right? They literally, it comes off the assembly line, and a guy or a girl goes and processes it through a testing process. And today, they have to take the testing output from this this one sensor, and they type it into a Power App, and then it goes, right? So the human is doing the digital transformation. So the idea is of an RPA is that they're going to find a way to make it so that a machine can grab and push that information into my app or into my flow so that then the digital process can go and happen.
Exactly. And so that machine is most likely old and can't be changed out and can't allow for new programming, right? And so you have to then figure out, where is my place in this process to inject the machine to where it can collect the information it needs and translate that into the system.
Huh, I had never heard of such a thing. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really neat stuff. So there's, like, if you want to do more research on RPA, there are some leaders in the space called Blue Prism and UiPath. And so if you go look up those guys, you'll get a pretty good idea on what robotic process. And so, yeah, but to bring it back full circle, that technology is something we are looking to bring into Flow to add to the skill set.
Oh. Well, and so does that fall along the lines? I know just this week I saw a couple of my fellow business app MVPs tweet out that they were doing Alexa skills that were triggering flows, right? So is that in the same ballpark, or is that still considered digital because Alexa is...
Yeah, so that one would still be considered digital because Alexa has an API. And so since she has an API and can be communicated with fully digitally and doesn't really... So you speak to her, right, to give her commands, but theoretically I don't really need to. I could just interact with her API and get her to do things. So I don't type anything. Nothing needs to be read. Me giving it the voice input, it's a little bit convoluted, but it's still in that DPA arena.
Gotcha. And can you give us a little overview of kind of how they're doing this Alexa stuff? Like, it blew my mind that they were doing it. I don't even know where I would begin to do such a thing. So what's up with that?
Yeah, so in Flow, you can build something called a custom connector, or you can use the HTTP connector. And either of these things, they allow you to interact with a third-party API. And an API is something that allows you to access the data of another service, right? It gives you inputs and outputs from that service. Right. So with this API, what they're doing is creating flows that, upon a certain question, the Alexa then will go and fetch certain information. And so they've kind of built like a little bit of a, if I ask you this, then go do this, with the flow behind the scenes. And so using HTTP or the custom connector, I actually didn't investigate what method they use deeply enough. Basically what happens is this voice command will come in, that recognizes the command, it starts the flow. Then it will go and seek a certain set of information. In this case, it's his emails. Okay. And then he'll give a command to Alexa to then read that information to him back. And so his voice triggers the flow, and then she goes and does what she's told in the flow based on how he then told the flow to go and hit her API.
And so then, like, all of the reading of his email, right? And is this Jon Levesque who did this? Is that...
No, Vivek, the API guy.
Oh, yeah. Man, that dude, every time I turn around, he's doing something crazy.
He's incredible.
He is. And he lives like that way. Oh, I almost fell over. He lives that way, like 20 miles. I should
really?
See him more. Yeah. He started the local user group, and so we worked together on that. And, yeah.
Nice. So I got to come do your guys' user group.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't want to put any pressure, but Brian Dang's already came and done it, so you.
I can't let Brian show me up, man.
I know, and Brian was right here in my basement. He came in and we recorded some stuff. I haven't put it out yet, but it's all. I got some beef footage of him.
Oh, I'm jealous.
What's super funny? This is completely inappropriate, but as you know, right? Brian is not the tallest gentleman ever.
No, he's not.
So. And I don't know if you can really tell, but I'm standing up. So I have a standing up desk, and like my camera's on a tripod, right? So I can get this good energy and flow when I do these things. Brian when he stood up, didn't make it high enough for the camera to see him.
That is hilarious. So we ended up so people need to know, I was shocked. You are very tall. You're like 6'6", right?
I'm 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there.
Okay, so Shane doesn't. When I watched his videos, I never got it. I was like, oh yeah, he's like a normal sized guy. When I stood next to him, I was like, oh my God, you're really tall. He's like, I get that all the time. So that's the thing, right? And Brian, I think if I had to guess, he's a maximum 5'8". And
Nowhere
so
near
not
that
even
tall.
maybe, yeah, like 5'5" probably. I was giving him a couple just guessing,
Okay.
So 6'5" to 5'5", it's below the shoulder.
Yeah. So we ended up getting him a stool so he could stand up so he could be in frame. So in the recordings he looks like
Excellent.
he's even with me, but he's totally standing on something. So, but shh, don't. I haven't told anyone that before. So and Daniel joined us in the chat room. He says hello. He was very excited to see that you're here.
Woo! What's up, Daniel?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Eric would like to point out that it's because I designed the whole room around my height. Right? Is it like the movies? Because like how Tom Cruise is like 4'10". And so they
Yes.
just make the whole set smaller so he looks like a
Yes.
full size human.
That's awesome.
That's a lot of fun. So I don't know, where was I don't know what we were talking about. Something about
Oh,
flow. Oh, robotic
yeah.
automations.
Yes. We were describing what that was.
So that's one of the big announcements you kind of see coming and going. So very cool. And
Yep.
and it's funny because I come to this from an Office 365 ecosystem. I have never considered Azure Logic Apps at all, right? And so it
Okay.
blows my mind that people see like confusion and I just to me it's everything's a flow, which is probably wrong. It's probably a shortcoming of me, but this idea
No,
that
I
you have
think.
to deal with that is very very weird to me.
Well, I think it's because you're an Office person that it's not confusing for you. I think that the developer realm really more is where this confusion comes in, right? Like if we're being honest, John Liu, a lot of the stuff he does like should probably be a Logic app, right? Because he's a developer, right?
Yeah.
His mind works in developer mode all the time. And so I think, it's not everyone for sure. And I don't want to add confusion. If you think, oh, I use Flow and never considered Logic apps, then you don't have to go and consider it, right? It's not something that now you have to be like, oh, should I be thinking about this? No, it's just if you're already thinking about it, we want to go ahead and make it clearer for you.
Yeah, no, and that makes total sense because you're right. I mean, when I look at what John or Pieter or Serge, those guys. I mean, they're just they get super duper nerdy. I'm like, I
Amazing.
can't even keep up. I'm like,
Not even close. Not even close. I half the time they'll ask stuff and I'm just like I'll be the first one to see it, but I don't even what the hell am I going to say here? So I just say nothing. I just tag other people. Maybe John will know this. Maybe I would just try and connect people at that point.
yeah. Well, the other confusing workflow tool still for a lot of our audience, I think, is SharePoint Designer. Do you have any thoughts on how terrible SharePoint Designer is and why no one ever should use that again?
So, I'm not a huge hater. It's definitely harder to use. Like it's for me, maybe because I started with Flow. Maybe if you started with Workflow Designer, it's not harder to use. But my one gripe with it is it only does SharePoint, right? Like it doesn't connect to anything else. And to make it connect to anything else, you need custom code.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why you would use it when you have Flow available. Like it does a couple of things that we don't do at this point, but that gap has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. Every 3-4 months, we're closing that gap and continuing to. So, I'm not a big hater. I don't have any venom to spew on workflow. I just think that when Flow is there and it does so much more with so many other systems, why wouldn't you just go ahead and use that?
Yeah, well, that's always been the challenge for me. Or not the challenge, right? But one of the big downsides. So I'm a SharePoint Designer hater because I used it for a really long time, and the whole SharePoint Designer is free joke got worn out. I've been a hater
Yeah.
for a long time, but I think you articulated it better once again. The fact that SharePoint Designer and its brethren InfoPath, right? They both kind of do what Power Apps and Flow do in theory in a small space, but they're
Yes.
so in the box. They can't get
Yeah.
outside the box of where that. They have no external context. Whereas, SharePoint Power Apps, Flow, we've got hundreds of connectors at this point, and we just keep getting more and more. And heck, we got the HTTP action where we can get to anything. So
Yep.
we
Yep.
never live in a box. And SharePoint Designer and InfoPath especially, they are both just, I do this one thing, and that's all we do.
Totally. No, and 244 connectors in Flow as of yesterday. I looked.
44. I figured we were closer to 300. I'm kind of disappointed by that number, to be honest.
Are you? Oh man, I feel great about that. I'm like, man, 244. That's almost 250.
But we crossed
You know-
200 like 9 months ago.
Well, that's true. So we did slow down on how quick we were making them because I'll tell you the truth, we're actually making them a lot better now.
Yeah.
And so, when you're going quality, you can't do as much quantity. So I feel pretty good about 244.
No, and don't get me wrong, right? 244 is a spectacular number, but man, there for a while, you guys were just churning out, one
We were
an
doing
hour.
like 5, 10 a week.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And so I think I got used to that growth rate. And when it, it's kind of like as soon as we hit 200, you guys started, you kind of started to rethink the process and started, and you'd gotten all the easy fruit, right? You'd gotten all the Salesforces and the Magentos and the this and the this and that. And I think that was another big part of it as well.
Ooh, you know what? Real quick. I have an interesting announcement about this. So connectors are going open source so that anyone on the planet, John Lou, you listening? Anyone on the planet can contribute to connectors. So that team now will allow polls and contributions from the community. So we will get more connectors and more actions. And so this is fully dependent on the community. If they participate, we can blow up this connector base. So look for some more information to come pretty soon on that.
That is that's a lot of fun. That'll be an interesting, as we start to see that, right? Because the Power Apps has got some of that type of mentality coming also. I don't know how much of that they've said out loud either, but this idea that we're going to let more people start to write some of this code is that'll be a radical shift on the accelerator pedal, I think.
Totally. I think just for the connectors especially, right? I mean, let's not let people into the code base to create the product itself, right? The platform, but the connectors, I think, is a massive opportunity because we only have so many people on that team. And as the world wants new connectors, imagine if now we can go to people like John Lou and Serge and Peter and say, hey guys, want to help us? And then suddenly now we have 10 new connectors a week again, right? Because people, not just those 3, but hundreds of people are suddenly contributing to this pool. I'm stoked to think about all the stuff that all the new connectors that people are going to bring to this arena.
Yeah, that will be lots of fun. And speaking of arenas, so Daniel just posted in the Slack chat room, so a picture of him and Brian. And, Daniel's got almost a head on Brian. And then he's got a picture of me and him, and I am kind of hunched over, and I've still got a head on Daniel. So I've got 2 heads on
awesome.
Brian.
Nice.
Anyway, not important, but I think the last thing I wanted to talk about on the Flow endpoints, because now we've kind of gotten a little nerdy in Flow, which is, I told you we'd kind of see where this thing went. But so with Flow, you guys just announced the team endpoints, right? Or the updates coming with that. And I don't know, I saw the news flash that was coming through, but can you talk a little bit about kind of what the demand was for that? Because one of the things I try to reinforce with this audience is, right, we all mostly came from a SharePoint background, and it's really hard for us to accept that Teams is becoming more the epicenter instead of SharePoint's been the epicenter for so long. And so this is just another piece of the proof there. So can you just talk a little bit about the demand you guys are seeing from Teams, and then what you're adding to make that a better world?
Sure, yeah. So Teams definitely is like the big focus, right? I think they have over 20 million users. That's probably a dated number now. They have a massive amount of user base, and we get a lot of requests to do more with Teams. We already had a Teams connector, and then we had a Teams bot, and there's still people like, we need more with Teams. So a couple new things. So you can mention people, like you can actually have Flow mention someone. And that wasn't possible before. Also, actionable cards are coming into Flow. So like I can create an approval that will create an actionable card in Teams. So that way someone could click like approve or reject right inside their Teams experience and not have to go to the approval center or to their email, just like the mobile app, similar type of idea. Also, you will be able to have the Teams bot start manual flows with no inputs. So currently, the bot could start a scheduled flow. So if I had a scheduled flow that said like every 30 days, get this report for me, I could tell that bot, the Teams bot, run this flow now. And now what I can do is if I have a manual flow that doesn't require input collection, it just starts with a button press, I can tell the Teams bot to run that manual flow. And so also now we have an authoring experience in Teams where we used to be a side-loaded app. Yep. Now we'll be loaded by default. And so you'll be able to then work on Flow right in Teams. And so that's the majority of the upgrade there.
That's a pretty impressive majority of the upgrade right there. That's
It's
a
pretty good,
lot of
right?
cool stuff.
Yeah, totally. I think for Teams users, it's very exciting, especially for us. The approvals part is cool because I like to call our approvals lazy because they're everywhere.
Yep.
And so this just adds one more place for you to go and do approvals.
Well, yeah, and when I teach about approvals in Flow, right, because usually the first thing I teach people, right, the fact that it shows up as an email, as a mobile notification, and you get the web dashboard, if you will, right, for that manager who gets 75 a day and who doesn't want to be bothered, right? Just go to this page and just click your way through this and you'll be done.
Totally.
So the fact that you're going to go in Flow, I think, is a big one. I'm assuming it should drive more discoverability for the Flow platform because we've got so many people in Teams who aren't all using Flow yet. Shame on them. But it should help kind of push more people to the Flow platform. Ideally,
that's the goal with a lot of these endpoints in Office is really just discoverability and awareness.
Wow, I didn't even realize it had went that deep down the rabbit hole. You should write that up for me so I can put that in something else so I can share with more people. But anyway,
sure.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've kind of ran the gamut here. What am I missing? What have I not asked you about in Flow that I should have taken advantage of this time and asked you about? Or what is it you kind of want to expose? Did I miss one?
I don't think so. I think you asked me, what it is, and we talked about some examples and how people can use it. And, I think the last thing is just to try it. And I always recommend you, when you're starting with Flow, go to templates. And I heard this said yesterday. I don't know who said it. I can't remember, but they said destroy the templates. And that's how I always learned. And I didn't put it that way. I always said dissect the templates, but I kind of like destroy the templates a little better. Because what you do is you use a template, you put in your connections, you hit continue, you let Flow make that template for you, and then you click edit, and then you rip it apart, right? And you see what's this trigger, and what are these actions, and what's this logic, and how is this made? And do that with 10, 20 different templates, and then go try and rebuild that one from memory, from breaking it apart. That's how I learned. I'm an experiential learner. That worked really well for me, and within 2 days, I really got it. And so I always say, start with templates. Go click on Learn. There's some resources there, and then definitely get into my YouTube channel. I have like 35 tutorials at this point. Shameless plug. No problem.
Nice. And I completely agree. That's how I learned Power Apps, right? I built something from the template and just said, how do they wire this up?
Totally.
And anytime I have to go and use a new connector or a new anything, I always go that route so that I hopefully can go in and, as you said, experience it, see how they hooked it up. The first time customers say connect to Salesforce, I was like, let me go build a Salesforce template app. Whoop, whoop. Okay, that's how they did it. Got it. Then I jumped over to the real app and then applied the logic. So
nice.
Totally agree. So in the chat room, Daniel would like to ask, so you can yell at him if you don't like the question.
Okay.
He just wanted you to give a quick overview of the Flow licensing. So does everyone already have a Flow license? What is this Flow 1 and Flow 2? And does it relate to the Power Apps 1 and 2s? Okay. All right, let's not get into any of the hard rabbit holes. Let's just kind of make sure everybody understands the 1,000-foot or the 100,000-foot view of it.
So I'm going to try and build this in layers, okay? So first layer is Office entitlement. So you have Office E1 through E5. You have a field plan and possibly a couple others, an education plan, whatever. But most importantly for all of you there, E1 through E5 gives you some Power Apps in Flow. Gives you 2,000 Flow runs per person per month, and lets you execute scheduled flows up to every 15 minutes. Okay. And so this gives you all the standard connectors as well, like all the Office, most of the Office stuff. Now we have Flow Plan 1. That's our first step up. This is $5 per user per month. This gives you access to premium connectors, gives you access to custom connectors, gives you access to the gateway. And recently, HTTP was moved from the Office SKU into the Plan 1 SKU. Now we step up again into Plan 2. Plan 2 gives you CDS, business process flows, administration ability, and additional environments. And so that's really like we give you everything plan in Flow.
Okay.
Now, one note here is if you're going to use Power Apps, you can buy Power Apps Plan 1, which would include Flow Plan 1. Or you can buy Power Apps Plan 2, which would include Flow Plan 2. And so that's about as neatly as I can bow that up. What do we think? Is that good?
I like it. I like it. Yeah. One of the things I always try to, a couple points I always add in here. Let's see how you feel about mine. So one is if you have Power Apps, you have Flow, right? There's no way to get Flow without having the corresponding Power Apps license. Is that?
That's not entirely true. You can buy Flow independent of Power Apps.
Okay, so there you go.
Yep.
So if you buy the
Yep.
Flow Plan 1 for all your users because you didn't have Office 365, you just want to be a Flow user, that might be.
Yep. You can do that, yes.
But if you have right, I like to think at this point, everyone in the world has Office 365. And almost all the Office 365 plans, any responsible business plan at this point, comes with the Power Apps and Flow licensing. So you're good in there. All right. I like that. And so then with Flow, for me, for Flow Plan 2, the biggest reason I think is it's the environments and the admin, the what do you call that? The reporting, the metrics, the logistics, the governance controls. Is that probably the top reason to move to a Flow Plan 2?
So I would say that is for your average automated Flow shop, yes. But I think, BPF, business process flows, do have a lot of value separate from Flow. They can run a lot longer. They give you visual representation. They have state. There's task flows and forms there. They connect to entities in your common data model if you're using that. So BPFs have a lot of value independent of Flow as well, and that's the second reason I would say. So it's either admin or BPF is why you go to Plan 2.
And BPF is really a part of the model-driven app story, right?
Correct. Okay. You cannot use BPF without having model-driven entities and things.
Gotcha. But I think the most important thing to instill in most of you, though, is most of you have a Flow license today, right? You should be playing with this and trying this. If you don't have it and you're an Office 365 company, it's because some evil IT person turned it off.
Yes.
So go yell at them. But you should have Flow and you should be trying it out because and like we talked about, automate personal stuff first because that gives the most value to you, which is going to get you the most engaged in doing all this.
You ready? You want me to make every IT person mad in the whole world? You ready?
I don't like IT people. Oh, wait, I am an IT person. No,
all right, ready? Here we go. So for those of you that have Flow blocked in your environment, if you just go and enter your personal email, that block will go away. And you'll actually be able to use Flow in your work environment.
Jon spreading the good news of how to circumvent. So there you go. Thankfully, this is mostly a podcast of IT nerds. So
good. So they're gonna learn.
Yeah, they're gonna figure out how the users got in without their permission. So I don't know. I think that kind of gets us through the topics for today. Unless you've got anything else, and kind of start to round out the corner and talk about some upcoming events and stuff.
Man, so the Power Platform UG Summit in Amsterdam is at the end of next month.
Okay.
That's going to be excellent. If you are around Amsterdam, if you want to go to Amsterdam, this is a great excuse. I mean, there's a huge amount of product team representation there. Myself, Audrey, Brian Dang, James Phillips, a whole bunch of others, and then MVP representation as well. There's going to be a boatload of the Flow MVPs. We're doing a session, a Flow session with beer called Flow Pub Trivia. And we've already gotten it cleared to have beer in the session. Come on, it's going to be amazing. It's Amsterdam, right? Other than that, I'm doing the keynote for SharePoint Saturday Warsaw. And so I'll be in Poland right after Amsterdam. And then a couple other big ones to put out there in the distant future, SharePoint Saturday UK. I'm doing the keynote there. And then more locally, I will actually be in April. I'll be in Washington, D.C. for Melissa Hubbard's Flow user group. And then I will also be in North Carolina for Daniel Christian's user group as well. So a couple of those in the U.S., a couple of those overseas. would love to see everyone's faces. And if you're going to pick one event, that Power Platform Summit in Amsterdam is just going to be incredible.
Very cool. Yeah, it's exciting stuff, quite frankly. So, and I guess I'll just throw out there. So I am doing an all-day Power Apps and Flow class in Omaha, good old Omaha, Nebraska, me and Warren Buffett. So that's March 29th. So come check that out if you're in the area. Todd will be at the SharePoint Exchange Forum in April in Stockholm, Sweden. So Todd will be doing a European adventure as well. And then the SharePoint conference. Are you going to the SharePoint conference?
As far as I know so far, I submitted independently and I didn't get picked, but last year leading up to the event, they wanted Microsoft speakers. So like 3 weeks before the event, they're like, we need 8 speakers. And so it's very possible that I might get a spot last minute. But at this point, I'm actually not planning to be there.
All right, well, Todd and I will be there May 20th for a pre-workshop on SharePoint admin stuff. So boo, nice. SharePoint. But yeah, I'm with you. I have not managed to pick up any Power Apps or Flow sessions for that conference either. So we should find, go get some pitchforks and figure out who we can.
We should. Let's start some fires.
There you go. All right. Well, Jon, I want to say thanks for joining us today. It was a great show. So lots of insight, lots of scary information out there, but hopefully everybody kind of takes from this the importance of flow and moves on.
Thanks so much for having me, man. This was a blast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
See ya.